country by being engaged in the political process, by being informed, by making good decisions as to how to move your community and your country forward. And for me, that meant standing up and running for office. I don't believe our current representative is doing the job that you deserve. He's been there for 30 years. He's passed 3 pieces of legislation, most recently 14 years ago. Almost half of the pieces of legislation he has submitted, he is the only sponsor on the bill. Now, to put that in perspective, that means that he could not find one other person in the Republican caucus who would add their name to the legislation he submitted. So even though he's had 30 years there, that experience isn't bringing us what we expect in a representative. I truly believe we can do better. So I'm hoping I can earn your vote and your support for November 6th election. And I'll open it up. You guys can ask questions.
Thank you. What is your opinion of DACA?
Sure, what's your name?
My name is Bill Schumann.
Hi, Bill. I look at DACA in a much broader context, and that is immigration reform in general. And I want you guys to think about Senate Bill, look it up, Senate Bill 744. Did it just get louder?
Yes.
Is it too loud now?
Yes.
Okay, maybe a little too loud. So Senate Bill 744 was passed by the Senate in 2013. Bipartisan support. My recollection was, I think it was around 65 to 32 or 33 was the vote. It included Republican senators from the southern border states. That comprehensive legislation, which I think we've heard the term the Gang of 8, there was 4 lead Republicans and 4 lead Democrats on that legislation. Comprehensive reform that included a pathway for citizenship for DACA and Dreamers. It included $46 billion for port and border security. And the reason it included port security was that half of the undocumented folks in our country came through our ports, not through the southern border. So it recognized that we need to make sure that if people come here on a green card and stay too long, that we are making sure that we're getting them back to their home country, or at least addressing the issue. And now we've lost all sense. So I'll project again. In addition, it provided changes to our visa program because it provided the opportunity for those who come here and study in school and start a business that they don't have to leave and go back to their home country where they're creating jobs here in the United States. And that legislation, the COB, estimated it would save $150 billion over 10 years. So, sounds great, right? What the heck happened to it? Let me tell you what happened to it. It went to the House of Representatives, where it had bipartisan majority support. But it did not have the support of the Tea Party, who told Boehner, if you let it on the floor to be voted on, you will no longer be Speaker of the House. So it never made it to the floor of the House of Representatives. I would like to see that legislation started up again, because it's bipartisan.
So what makes you think that you can make a difference? Since you had worked with all these people, you just said that Bono was threatened not to bring a bill. What makes you think that you can make a difference with these 435 people there?
That's a great question. So the question is, why do I think I can make a difference with 435 people in the House of Representatives? And I'm not Pollyannish about this. I know I am one of 435 people. What I do know is where our country is right now, that if we don't start electing people at the local, state, and national level who are willing to put country first, then we are on a course that is not good for our country. So it's up to all of us in this room to start working to make sure we are sending people to office and holding those people accountable to reach across the aisle and do the work that they were elected to do. And I'm committed to doing that. There's a group in Congress called the Problem Solvers. And the Problem Solvers is a group that's equal Republicans and equal Democrats, where they try to find common ground, common sense for common ground, and push that legislation forward in a bipartisan effort. And I hope I can be part of that group, because I do believe that's the direction we have to go. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to happen overnight. But if we don't start again down this path, I'm afraid for our country, because it's not what our founders wanted us to do.
Hi, my name's Ryder, and I'm a senior in high school, and I just wanted to know what your plan was about getting college prices down, because, as you know, they hit record highs with wages being record lows. So what is your plan on that?
Hey, Ryder, great question. Everybody hear that? To address accessible, affordable higher education being the question. And I think this is an issue that's near and dear to me. And K through 12 made sense post-World War II. Everybody we knew had to go to high school, get an education. We wanted to make sure they went to kindergarten as well and had a good education all the way through it. But today, in our global economy, we have to have P through C. We have to have preschool through college or trade school opportunities for our kids. Because whoever has the best educated, smartest workforce in the world is going to win in a competitive global environment, right?
Yes.
So I believe we should actually start with the lower quartile socioeconomic levels and make sure those kids have access to work-study programs. Basically, college education at nonprofit universities or trade schools with a work component program. And the reason I believe in this is if, let's think for a second, if those kids got that education, who here thinks those kids in lower socioeconomic levels with 4 years of college education or trade school have a greater opportunity of being in middle class or higher? Right? Good. So that means you're going to pay more taxes over the next 40 years of their life, which will more than pay for that program. In addition, because they're middle class or higher, at least most of them, they're going to have less need for social services support. So that means less tax dollars have to go to safety programs to support them. Third, they're going to have more discretionary income. More discretionary income means what? Every single business is lifted because they're spending money in the economy. And fourth, they break the cycle of poverty. So to me, this is an absolute no-brainer to head down this direction. And I'm not the only one thinking this. The state of New York has already implemented free 4 years of college education for their kids, and I think the cutoff is at $150,000 income or lower for their parents. And you might say, well, Harley, New York is a blue state. They've got a blue legislature and a blue governor, so it's just another situation that's going to cost taxpayers a lot of money. Well, they're wrong, because there's another state that does it. And this state doesn't have an income limit. That state's Tennessee. Tennessee has a red legislature and a red governor. Why does Tennessee provide free college education to all their kids? Because they know companies will locate in Tennessee and create jobs for their kids when they graduate from college, because they know they have the smartest workforce in the United States, the best educated. Let's put this in context too. The tax scam plan that was just passed by the Republicans is going to increase our deficit around $2 trillion. At current interest rates of 2%, that's $40 billion a year. Everybody good so far? $40 billion. Guess what it costs to educate the bottom quartile of Americans with a free college education with a work component? $20 billion. In other words, half of our 18-year-olds could be educated for free for what we just passed in interest cost to future generations. As a country, we need to have a discussion as what's important to us. Making sure that 70% of these tax benefits go to the top 1% of our country while burdening our children and grandchildren with increased deficits, or making sure we have the best educated kids in America. I don't know about you, but I know where I stand. I stand with our kids.
I'm now retired. I cannot afford to stay here. The housing cost is driving me out of my home.
So the question is the housing cost here. She's in Seal Beach, lived here 60 years, worked 42 years, and is having trouble staying here because of the increase in housing costs. It's a huge issue. It's a huge issue across the district in Southern California, frankly, all of California. And we have a high percentage of renters here, but we don't have the housing stock to meet the demands. And the answer to that is really threefold. It has to be local, state, and federal government working together to solve the problem. We have a lot of local governments who don't want to see any additional housing. And we have state government who's not necessarily working as hard as they can to release the funds to address the housing affordability and homeless issue. And we certainly have federal programs that are being denigrated as far as the cash being available for municipalities like Seal Beach to be able to address this issue. So we've got to get folks around the table to address it, because it's not just about housing. In addition to affordable housing, it's worse than we realize, because there are many homes and apartments where we have 2 or 3 families living. Also, we have a significant homelessness population here, which is driven also by housing affordability. In addition, we have infrastructure issues and pollution that's tied to the fact that many people who work here can't live here, so they're on the highway every single day. So we've got to do a better job making sure that we build affordable units and accessible units to where we live.
They're building affordable units supposedly, but they're over $2,000 a month. You call that affordable? I can't do that on Social Security.
Right.
And everybody's fighting it, and I live in Lakewood, but everybody's fighting it.
Right. And that's why I do think it requires, again, people sitting down around the table to come up with a master plan. But there are great federal programs available that create opportunities for senior housing. But if it's not properly funded or funding is reduced, then you're just exacerbating the situation. Yes?
Hi, I'm Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
Okay, so I was out canvassing on Saturday, and somebody asked me about the commercial that's on TV and the woman that got fired because she had cancer. So I said, I don't really know the answer to your question, so instead of lying to you, I told her I was coming tonight and I would ask you that question.
Any questions? Okay, so here's the answer. I used to run a company. It was about, at that time, about 3,500 people. And this was in the real estate industry. The real estate industry in 2006, 2008 started to take a dive. And that woman worked in a different city altogether, managed by 2 people who reported up to me. And she was terminated because we had to cut back the workforce due to the real estate industry basically collapsing. She did sue the company and me for wrongful discharge. And after the plaintiffs, her and her attorneys put on their case, the judge ordered a directed verdict against me. A directed verdict means, plaintiffs, you have failed to put on a case. I am dismissing Harley Rouda Jr. from the case immediately. That's what they did. Her attorney did a good job. I'll give him credit. And we actually became friends, and he is supporting our campaign. I know the woman who lost her job, and I feel horrible about that. It was the nature of the real estate industry. We actually saw in our business, our revenues go down by 60% while our market share went up. That's what happened in the real estate industry. If anybody's connected to the real estate industry, I know Sandy up front is here. You know how brutal it was from 2008 to 2012. Yes,
Hi, my name's Angela. I'm also a senior at Easy High School, and I was wondering that given that there's such a large Republican stronghold in this district, I was wondering how you felt like you could appeal to both sides, because Dana has been in office for 30 years. That there's obviously such a liking for Republicans, I guess. So how do you feel like you appeal to both sides?
Angela?
Yeah.
Right. And are you registered?
Yeah.
Let's start with the environment. he supports offshore drilling. I don't. He does not believe in climate change. I believe he calls it a global, or a farce. A fraud, excuse me, a fraud. I believe climate change is the biggest issue facing humankind long term. And it will believes homelessness is a lifestyle decision. I don't. My wife and I, who's here right now, we've been married 28 years. We have 4 kids, one of them right here, Dylan. Sarah and I, in our 20s, built a home for homeless families because at that time we used to separate the families when they became homeless, sending the men and the older boys to the men's shelter and the women and children to the women's shelter. And just as then, as it is now, it's wrong to separate families like we do. This is another issue. There's a big difference between me and Warbacher. You heard where I am on immigration. He wants to deport every single undocumented immigrant in the United States, period, with no exceptions whatsoever, including dreamers who have served in our military. So there's no he won't give 1 inch in that area. He's also on record as saying that homeowners should not have to sell their homes to gays and lesbians, even though it's against the law in 22 states, including California. We're completely different on that issue. And he has taken hundreds of thousands of dollars from corporate interests. I have taken none, nor will. And the one issue that sticks out the most to me is our respective positions on addressing gun violence. I believe what California has implemented, which is 10-day waiting periods and background checks and banning the sale of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines and not allowing those on the no-fly list and they've been adjudicated as mentally incompetent from buying guns, makes sense. He is in the pocket of the NRA. He actually, on This Is America, he, on TV, said he supports the training and arming of school children to protect our schools. Now, some of you see that was the kindergarten segment, and he qualified his answer. I'm not making this up. He qualified his answer and stated that he was not talking about those in kindergarten or school. He was only talking about high school students being trained and armed, and that there would be a limited number of guns available at the school for their use in the event of a violent situation. So there's a lot of difference between me. I truly believe Dana is dangerous in his thinking. And he's going to want to portray me and some crazy person on the far left. I believe that we have solutions that are common sense, and we can find those working together. And his extremist positions do not represent the voters of Orange County.
Washington, how might you try to bridge that gap or break that impasse? Because it seems that no one wants to work together anymore.
It's the question of how do you break the impasse we have in Congress. As I said earlier, electing people who are willing to reach across the aisles is a step. But if you really want to have change here, here's what we've got to do. Part of the reason we have such partisanship is because of 3 things. And before I tell you those 3 things, let me just share a couple quick stats with you from one's from 1978, one's from 1982. I can't remember which is which, let's just say 1980. If you look at the 100 senators in 1980, which included George H. Bush, and you look at the most conservative Democrat and the most liberal Republican, you would have found approximately 60 senators falling in that gap. What would we call those people? Centrists, moderates, right? Now for 5 years straight, we haven't had one. If you also look at those same 100 senators in that time frame, they voted with their party approximately 60% of the time. Today they vote with their party 95%. So what's happened? I think there's three things that have happened. One is gerrymandering. The gerrymandering that's taking place in our country. California, by the way, is the exception to that rule. We have an independent commission here that sets up the districts. So we're probably the least gerrymandered state in the country. But with gerrymandering, whether it's a Democratic-controlled state legislature or a Republican-controlled state legislature that's in effect at the time of the U.S. Census being completed, they gerrymander their state to support their party. And they try to put all the Democrats in this district and the Republicans in these districts. So to win those districts, you tend to have to appeal to the folks that are on the farther ends of the political spectrum. Throw on top of that issue two, and that's Citizens United decision. Citizens United decision in 2010, the Supreme Court justices decided that corporations are people too. Anybody ever dated a corporation? Been to a corporation's birthday party, made out with a corporation? No. Okay. Anyway, these justices thought that it would have virtually no impact on dark or soft money coming into elections. $140 million was the amount of dark money in the 2010 election cycle. 2016 was $1.6 billion. As I stand here right now, 1 out of every 10 TV ads being aired in this political season across our country are funded by the Koch brothers. That's not democracy when 1 out of every 10 ads we're seeing across the country is supporting candidates being funded by the Koch brothers. So you take that money, $1.6 billion, and you start putting that into these races, and you get the candidates that you want by spending trying to get extreme candidates that won't compromise. And the third is that we have become a country where we do not look for news unless it echoes what we already believe. And we, as voters, as citizens, as adults, have an obligation to try and understand the other side. I actually watch Fox News. I don't watch Hannity. And I don't really watch Tucker. But I do try to watch Fox News so I can see and understand the rationale behind some of those views. Because I understand that if I'm going to have success in Congress, I've got to find one between the 20-yard lines. Great question.
Hi. Hi. Yeah, I want to kind of follow up on this discussion, and I appreciate your position of trying to get people in the middle and thinking more beyond the ending yard lines. You know, Congress today, it seems like the way they vote now is along party lines, and I'm hearing you say that you want to reach across the aisles, and that's often because appropriations to the districts come if they vote along the party lines based on what the whip is doing in the appropriations committee. So are you saying that you're willing to vote non-democratic every time a piece of legislation is in front of you? And
correct.
That's good to hear. And what will you do then as well to kind of get others to see more that way? Because it's a difficult task when you've got the party whips trying to whip you into shape to go along the party lines and keeping you in line. And it's a shame because 1980 was a better place with a 60-40 rather than 95-5. So if you can expand on that a little bit more, you got to have friends who can work with you, not only in Congress, but also in the Senate. So do you have any contacts there who think along like you do?
Yeah, it's a great question because it is a fine line. If you want to get things done, you've got to work with others, and often that's people in your own party. But you also, I need to do what's right for the constituents of the 48th district. And I'm, as corny as this sounds, I am truly doing this for the greater good. I had a great career. My wife and I have been very successful. I was arguably in semi-retirement and serving on boards, and it feels this time that our country needs all of us to stand up. I had the time and the ability to do this. But I also recognize that there's a chance my disagreeing with the party, maybe I'll end up being a short term for that. But I don't care. I'm not doing this because I need a job. I'm not doing this for a career. I'm doing this for the greater good. And if I can serve my country and serve you appropriately and correctly, I will do that. And I'll take my chances.
And there's another expectation is that you raise money for the party. You know, they're on the telephones in Washington. They're on the telephones to raise money for the party. Is that something that you will also do?
Oh, I definitely want to see finance reform. I can tell you that I dedicate right now a couple hours every day to making phone calls and raising money because that's the system we're in. But you can't change what you want to change unless you believe the old adage of if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. So I've got to win first and then get these things changed.
Thank you for your time. So San Francisco recently enacted a policy that would let everybody vote, regardless of whether or not they were a citizen or here undocumented. But the federal government is coming in and trying to put a stop to that. So I want to know what your opinions are on that.
The federal government trying to stop.
The San Francisco from enacting a policy that would let everybody vote, whether or not they're a citizen.
I am not familiar with that policy, and it sounds like a San Francisco issue. So I haven't looked at it yet, so I'm afraid I don't have an opinion on it.
Okay, I just wanted to know what you thought about like letting everybody who lived in America vote on like stuff that would impact their lives, even though they're not citizens.
I lean towards the opinion that you need to be a citizen of the United States to vote.
Is there a current member of our Congress that you admire most? And if so, which person might that be?
That's a great question. I must admit I have a man crush on Adam Schiff. And I really like Eric Swalwell too. And I wish I had Ted Lieu's tweeting